Hi, I'm Lorene. I was standing in the kitchen, cooking Christmas dinner like I always do, when I overheard my sister tell our mom I was a failure. I smiled, not because it didn't hurt, but because I finally saw it for what it was. 3 days later, I stopped paying their bills, and then I discovered they'd taken out a mortgage. In my name. How do you confront a family who calls you invisible while living off your silence? And what happens when you finally say, enough? I spent most of the afternoon in the kitchen, hands deep in flour, mind tucked somewhere between the rosemary lamb roast and the gingerbread cooling by the window. The snow had started falling softly an hour ago, brushing the windows with that postcard kind of winter scene you only see in department store ads. From the living room, a jazz version of Silent Night hummed through the speakers. A pretty backdrop. A lie, really. No one had asked me to host Christmas this year, just like they hadn't the year before. But they all assumed it, as always. Because I didn't have a husband to split time with. Because I didn't have kids who needed presents, or naps, or their own traditions. Because I didn't have an excuse. So there I was, marinating, mixing, arranging. I even hand-wrote name cards for everyone, a tradition I'd carried on from when Grandma was still alive. I placed mine quietly at the end of the table. I already knew it'd be the one no one noticed missing. At one point, while rinsing a spoon, I heard voices drift from the hallway. The door was barely cracked, but it was enough. I froze. Not because I was eavesdropping. This house didn't need walls to hear the truth, but because of how natural they sounded saying it. "She's a failure, Mom," Marla's voice said, as casual as if she were commenting on the weather. "She's almost 40, still clinging to this house like some little contractor who peaked with drywall and a paintbrush." I didn't hear footsteps, just a pause. Then Mom's reply. "We let her feel important. It keeps her out of trouble." The spoon slipped from my hand and clattered into the sink. The sound echoed across the tile. I didn't cry, didn't even flinch. I wiped my fingers on the dish towel, turned the oven down by 5 degrees, and smiled. That smile, I'd worn it before. At funerals, where people pretended to miss each other. At graduation parties, where my name didn't show up in the slideshow. At every family event, where I paid for the drinks and still ended up clearing the dishes alone. A few minutes later, I stepped out of the kitchen to grab the wine from the dining hutch. On the hallway table, I saw it. A stack of holiday invitations still rubber-banded together. Glendora had printed them at Office Depot. One peek and I saw it, bold and centered. Christmas dinner hosted by Glendora and Marla Birch. I stared at the text for a second longer than I needed to. Then I took a breath, adjusted my scarf, and walked back into the kitchen. No one had noticed me leave. No one would notice if I stayed. I opened the window over the sink to let the pie cool, the sting of cold air biting at my hands. But I needed it. Needed to feel something that wasn't numb, that wasn't buried under years of making excuses for people who couldn't name what I brought to the table, but sure as hell ate off it. The house started to fill with the sounds of people arriving, car doors slamming, boots hitting pavement, laughter in the driveway that didn't include me. I heard Marla greeting someone at the door with her fake hostess voice, the one she used when trying to impress people who didn't know better. I walked over to the dining table, picked up the name card I had written for myself, and quietly slid it into the drawer with the silverware. That way, no one would know it had ever been there. That way, they wouldn't feel guilty for not mentioning me. I stayed in the kitchen longer than I needed to, pretending to fuss with the appetizers, arranging the deviled eggs just so, then rearranging them again. From the clinking of glasses and footsteps on hardwood, I could tell people were settling in. My name was never called. Eventually, I stepped out to check on the wine, keeping my face neutral. That's when it happened. A woman I barely recognized, someone Marla probably knew from yoga, or one of those short-lived book clubs, walked straight up to me near the counter. She was holding a glass of Cabernet and smiling. "Are you the caterer? Everything's just wonderful." I stared at her for a moment, long enough for her expression to shift into an awkward sort of chuckle. Before I could say a word, Glendora chimed in from behind her, waving her hand dismissively like I was a stray leaf she hadn't bothered sweeping yet. "Oh, that's Lorene. She's always been a kitchen type," she said with a chuckle that held no warmth. "Loves this kind of stuff." The woman nodded, laughed politely, and walked away. That moment should have stung, but it didn't. Not anymore. Then Marla breezed by with a half glass of wine and her usual perfume cloud, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. She does this every year. It's her thing. Makes her feel useful. Makes her feel useful? That one stuck. I went back to the oven to check the rolls, even though they weren't close to ready. In the hallway mirror, I caught my reflection. My cheeks were flushed, not from the heat, just the usual quiet, internal thunder I'd gotten good at muffling. That, and the effort it took to smile at people who walked past me like I was paid help. The worst part? No one even meant it cruelly. That's what made it burn deeper. Dinner rolled on. I poured drinks, fetched napkins, cleared plates. Somewhere between the second and third course, I realized no one had actually thanked me. Not once. I overheard Marla explaining the roasted carrots, ones I'd glazed with maple and cumin for hours, to a friend from her firm. "It's just a simple menu," she said. "We pulled it together last minute." Right. I handed someone their wine refill without saying anything. The stem of the glass wobbled slightly in my fingers, but my expression didn't flinch. Later, I tried to sit at the table. There were name cards, pretty gold script ones that I hadn't written. I scanned the setting once. Mine wasn't there. I checked twice to be sure, then 3 times. No plate, no chair, no name. So, I stood. I leaned against the entryway, eating off a side plate in the kitchen like a server on break. I heard someone ask Marla if she had hired a private chef this year. She laughed. "God, no. That's just Lorene. She'd rather do than talk." She'd rather do than talk. I took out my phone and opened the Notes app, tapped the plus icon. I titled it, "They Keep Forgetting Me." Underneath, I began to list. Quiet, methodical. Groceries last week, $312. New stove, Mom insisted on stainless steel, $1,645. Yard work labor, $260. Holiday string lights, $97. 10 years of being the one who shows up. This wasn't bitterness, it was inventory. I wasn't angry, I was done being surprised. That's all. A cousin waved me over with a look that said, "Bring more wine." I nodded, turned off the oven, and excused myself to the guest room under the pretense of grabbing extra candles. Once inside, I closed the door softly behind me. There, on the side table, was a file folder. Yellow. Labeled in thick black marker. House deed. I stared at it. My hand hovered just above the edge, but I didn't touch it yet. The hallway was quiet when I stepped out of the guest room, leaving the yellow folder untouched. For now. The house had shifted. Gone were the footsteps and fake laughter, the polite chatter of people who knew how to show up for appearances, but never for consequences. The silence felt raw, almost hollow, like a stage after a play ends. I slipped off my shoes and padded into the kitchen, gathering the last of the dinner plates. The dishwasher door creaked open, breaking the stillness. One by one, I slid the dishes in, careful not to clatter them too loud. It was almost midnight, and everyone else had retreated to their corners of comfort, full and oblivious. But I couldn't sleep, not with the ache in my chest that had nothing to do with exhaustion. After wiping down the counters, I passed the living room and saw them. 3 old photo albums stacked neatly on the coffee table. Glendora had pulled them out earlier, probably for her little, "look how blessed we are" show and tell. She always liked parading the past around when guests were over, as if the illusion of closeness could outweigh the cost of silence. I picked up the top one, flipping past the cover embossed with gold lettering. Family Moments, Vol and I. There was Marla in a baby tutu, posing at her dance recital. Marla with a crown on her sweet 16. Marla and Glendora, arm in arm at her college graduation. On the next page, I found a photo from our trip to Yosemite. I remember holding the camera for that shot. I wasn't in it. Of course I wasn't. Page after page, the theme continued. Christmases, birthdays, cookouts, all with Marla front and center. If I was there at all, I was either in the background, out of focus, or missing entirely. Only twice did I see my own face. One, I must have been 7, standing behind Marla as she opened a gift. My eyes were half shut, mid-blink. The second, I was maybe 15, partially obscured by Glendora's hand waving at someone off camera. My name wasn't scribbled under either. A slip of paper fell out from the back of the album. I caught it before it hit the carpet. On it, in Glendora's loopy cursive, were the words, Marla's Memories. For future photo boards. Future photo boards. I let out a quiet exhale and closed the album, not slamming it. Just enough to feel it settle. Behind me, I heard the faint clink of ice in a glass. Didn't think you'd still be up. Daryl's voice came from the entryway. He stepped into the room with a scotch in hand, wearing his old flannel robe like it made him approachable. I couldn't sleep, I said, not looking at him. He nodded toward the album on my lap. Those old things still holding up? Interesting collection, I said, keeping my tone even. He sat in the armchair across from me, exhaling as he settled in. Your mother always loved keeping track of everything. Pictures, receipts, birthday cards, that kind of thing. I flipped the album open again and held it up. Did you ever notice I wasn't in these? Daryl took a sip. You were always working, fixing something, helping in the kitchen. Marla was better at showing up when it counted. When it counted? I repeated. My voice wasn't loud, but it was sharper now. He shifted in his chair. I didn't mean it like that. No? I closed the album gently, then placed it on the coffee table. Because it sounds a lot like you're saying I was only visible when I wasn't being useful. He looked down at his drink, then back at me. I'm just saying, you were dependable. That's not a bad thing. Except it makes me invisible in every photo, every story, every thank you speech, I said. I've built every room you people feel safe in, and I've never been seen inside one. He didn't answer, just stood up slowly, scotch still in hand. Try to get some rest, he said, turning toward the hallway. As he left, I watched his back disappear into the shadows, the same way my presence had vanished from every family narrative they'd ever told. I turned back to the album, pulled a Sharpie from the side drawer, and scribbled across the back cover in bold, angry strokes. Erased, but never again. I left the living room without turning back. The Sharpie still in my hand, its scent lingering like a warning. The house had gone still. A different kind of quiet, one that hummed just beneath the surface. I moved down the hall, shutting my bedroom door with care. I didn't need the click to echo. What came next didn't require an audience. Morning came slow, the kind of gray light that seeps through curtains and asks nothing of you. I hadn't slept. Instead, I stared at the ceiling until I decided staring wasn't enough. By 7, I was at my small desk with a cup of black coffee and my laptop already humming. I opened my banking app. The numbers didn't surprise me anymore, but I wasn't looking for shock. I was looking for a pattern. Groceries, cell phone bills, new tires for Glendora's car last summer. She'd forgotten to pay me back, then acted annoyed when I asked about it. A dozen recurring payments marked under vague labels like household or medical that always traced back to me. I highlighted each line, adding tags. Me, Marla, them. Scrolling through the charges, I paused at a check labeled Mom's Dentist. The amount, $3,500. I remembered sending it after Glendora's root canal. She'd called crying from the parking lot, said she couldn't go through with it unless I helped. I did. No questions asked. Now I had all the questions in the world. In the background, I could hear Glendora humming something vaguely like a Christmas hymn. She was in the kitchen, probably stirring coffee with the same hand she used to sign cards that never included my name. I clicked over to my credit card portal next. The last few months unfolded like a shopping spree I never knew I went on. An Uber from Phoenix. A dinner bill for two at a place called the Ember House. I'd never heard of it. I hadn't even left Flagstaff in over 6 weeks. And then, Sephora, $298. My stomach tightened. Marla's makeup drawer was bigger than her resume. The same Marla who once laughed at me for still using drugstore mascara. "You could try investing in your face," she'd said. "Might be the only return you get this year." I called the number on the back of the card. A woman named Tara answered, cheerful and unaware. "Yes, ma'am, those purchases were made using the card ending in 38XX. That account is still active and linked to your email. Would you like to dispute them?" I didn't speak for a second. Just let the silence speak for itself. "No," I said eventually. "I'd like to print them." After hanging up, I created a new folder on my desktop. Family Finance. Facts only. I downloaded the statements, highlighting each item. I color-coded the categories: green for groceries, orange for shared bills, red for anything suspicious. I didn't need a courtroom. I needed the truth laid out plainly, like a blueprint of everything they'd built with bricks I'd handed them. I opened Word, started typing, Venmo transfer to Marla Birch, $220 payment to Glendora Birch, emergency dental, $3,500, Sephora, Phoenix, not me, $298, dinner, the Ember House, not me, $178, Amazon gift purchase, shipped to Marla's address, $112 Uber, Phoenix downtown, $47. At the bottom, I added, paid by Lorene, just not remembered by them. I pulled the printer tray open and let the pages spill out one by one. The sound of the inkjet filling the silence was oddly satisfying, like proof becoming real. Each sheet got its own sticky note: hers, mine, theirs, lies. No dramatics, no commentary, just cold, labeled math. By noon, I had a stack nearly half an inch thick. I didn't rage, didn't throw anything. I wasn't trying to make noise. I was building a case. I slid the pile into a slim folder and sealed it with a single yellow post-it on top. It read, "If they ask again, I'll show them this. If they don't, I'll still know." Before I closed my laptop, I searched my name one last time in the statements, just to see if, somewhere, they'd ever tagged me. Nothing. Then I opened Facebook out of habit. Right there, posted the night before, was a picture of Marla with a balloon arch behind her and a champagne flute in hand. Her caption read, "Marla's 40th birthday bash, sponsored by Family Love." The timestamp? Same day as the dental check. Same amount. Same family. I didn't react. Not outwardly. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I clicked the 3 little dots in the corner of her post. Then I hit save. 2 mornings passed. I spent them quietly. The snow that had blanketed the yard began to melt in patches, revealing the uneven landscaping I had fixed the year before. No one noticed that, either. By the afternoon of the 3rd day, I was outside trimming the boxwoods along the fence. It wasn't gardening weather, but I needed something with an edge in my hand. Something to remind me I could still shape things, cut away what didn't belong. That's when Mr. Blevins, our neighbor from 2 doors down, strolled by with his golden retriever. He waved, called out, "You and Marla did a fantastic job with the place. She showed us the pictures. Looked like something straight out of a magazine." I straightened up. "Pictures?" He pulled out his phone, scrolling casually. "She posted it on Facebook, real classy. Said it was a dream come true for both of you." Both of us. I wiped my gloves on my jeans. "Thanks," I said, flat. Then turned back toward the house without another word. I didn't slam the door when I walked in, but I let it shut with enough force to make a statement. Marla was on the couch, scrolling her phone, legs tucked beneath her like she belonged there, like she had earned that comfort. I walked to the drawer where I kept the file, the one labeled with her name, my receipts, and our mother's excuses. She didn't look up until I placed a printed sheet on the coffee table. $212,387.34, I said. "That's what this house has cost me since Dad lost his job." Marla glanced at the page, unfazed. "Okay?" Every dollar, I continued. Every coat of paint, roof repair, plumbing issue, lawn service, insurance premium. You name it. She shrugged, tossing her phone onto the cushion beside her. I was just posting for the vibe. People like to see something put together. For the vibe? I leaned forward, pointing to her post. You captioned it. New chapter. Dream home finally ours. You didn't say vibe. You said ours. God, Lauren, it's just social media. People get it. It's not that deep. No, they don't get it, I snapped. They believe it. And you know what? I let them believe it, for too long. She crossed her arms. You're overreacting. I tapped the receipt again. Presentable doesn't mean fictional, and you don't get to fictionalize my sacrifice. Glendora appeared in the hallway just then, drawn in like moth to heat. She offered her usual peacekeeping smile. Girls, let's not fight. You're both strong in different ways. Marla snorted. Exactly. I'm strong out there. She's strong in here. Glendora continued. Let's not turn this into a thing. Marla didn't mean it that way, honey. I turned to her slowly. It became a thing when pretending I didn't matter became easier than thanking me. Her face twitched, just for a second. I kept going. When people thank you for building something you didn't touch, and you nod instead of correcting them, that's theft. You're stealing truth, and I'm done watching you do it. Marla rolled her eyes. Are you seriously threatening us over a Facebook caption? No, I said, standing tall. I'm telling you that the next time anyone posts a version of my life without me in it, there won't be a conversation. There will be action. She laughed. Too loud, too forced. You always make everything dramatic. I took a step closer. That's rich, coming from someone who choreographs every moment of her life to impress strangers. Daryl walked in then, still in his slippers, carrying a newspaper he hadn't read in years. He looked between the three of us, sensed the tension, and froze like he'd stumbled into a minefield. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I looked him in the eye. You still think the stable one is the safe bet? He didn't respond. Marla, flustered, grabbed the throw pillow next to her and flung it across the room. It landed near the fireplace. Glendora gasped softly. I didn't move. Because this wasn't chaos. This was clarity. The next morning, the house moved with forced quiet, the kind that only happens when everyone's pretending nothing happened. A pillow still sat crooked near the fireplace where Marla had thrown it. No one picked it up. It stayed like that all night, like a punctuation mark no one wanted to erase. I made myself a cup of coffee and walked it back to my room. I didn't greet anyone. I didn't need to. I had other things to do. Once inside, I sat down at my desk, opened my banking dashboard, and began. Marla's name was still attached to the shared credit card I'd added her to 2 years ago, back when she claimed she just needed a little help getting through the winter. Glendora's bills were still pulling from my account automatically. Utilities, Wi-Fi, even a streaming service I hadn't used in months, but she insisted she needed because my programs helped me sleep. I clicked through each tab deliberately, removing names, unlinking accounts, canceling autopays. My fingers didn't hesitate. They'd hesitated for too many years. After that, I opened a blank message and typed, Going forward, all household expenses must be approved in writing and split equally. I will no longer carry this alone. I sent it to both of them, then shut my laptop and exhaled slowly. Not 10 minutes later, my phone started ringing. First Glendora, then again, then again. I didn't answer. An hour later, there was a soft knock at my door. Lorene? It was her. Voice gentle, sweetened with worry. Can we talk for just a second? I opened the door halfway. She stepped back like she'd seen something she didn't recognize. I'm trying to keep things calm, she started. But this money thing, it's putting a lot of pressure on me, on all of us. I said nothing. She looked down, then back up, eyes slightly glassy. If I die from the stress of this, will it really have been worth the money you saved? That line. That kind of line was her weapon. She never raised her voice. She just cut with guilt. I didn't blink. "If you die," I said evenly, "it won't be from stress. It'll be from decades of pretending truth is cruelty." Her face flickered, just for a moment. But instead of responding, she turned and walked away. Her slippers made that faint scuffing sound across the hallway tile, as if even the floor was tired of carrying her. I went back to my desk and sat in silence until my phone buzzed. Marla. "You're turning into someone ugly, Laureen. You used to care." I stared at the message for a few seconds, then locked my screen. Later that afternoon, I returned to the spreadsheet I'd started, the one where everything was documented, every charge, every transfer, every time I said yes while they treated me like a backup generator. Scrolling down, I found the transaction from 2 months ago, $3,500. Memo. Mom's dental surgery. That call still echoed in my head. Glendora crying at the oral surgeon's parking lot, saying she didn't want to lose another tooth, didn't have the money. I wired it immediately. I clicked over to Facebook, needing a break. And there it was, still up, Marla's 40th birthday bash. Can't believe we pulled it off. Gold balloons, catered food, matching champagne flutes. And Marla, beaming. The date? Same day as the dental check. The cost? Just about the same. The caption? Sponsored by Family Love. I didn't comment. I didn't call. I didn't even screenshot it. I saved the post. Then I opened a new browser tab. Typed in Arizona Property Fraud Law. A list of statutes filled the screen. Definitions, consequences, examples. I skimmed, eyes narrowing. Not because I was afraid, because I was done playing polite. I didn't need permission, just precision. I didn't sleep that night, not from restlessness, but from strategy. There was a shift in the air, the kind that comes right before a storm breaks. I felt it in my spine, in the silence of the house, in the blue light from my laptop as I organized every screenshot, every bank statement, every whisper of deception. By morning, the fallout began. My phone buzzed violently on the nightstand. I turned it over, 16 notifications, 47 comments, all from Facebook. I opened the app and saw the post. Glendora Birch. Raising children isn't easy, but some repay love with cold shoulders and greed. I still pray for the one who turned away. I stared at the words, letting each one fall into place like weights. The image attached was a decades-old photo of me and Marla, back when I still believed a family portrait meant something. The comments underneath were a buffet of moral superiority and subtle jabs. You deserve better, Glendora. Some daughters forget who fed them. That job changed her. She's not the sweet girl you raised. I didn't respond. Instead, I pressed Save Post, then began taking screenshots of every comment, every reaction, every name that clicked like. I created a folder, Defamation Thread. I wasn't angry. I was collecting data. Truth doesn't panic, it plans. I shut the app and stretched my back. Downstairs, I could hear Glendora humming as she stirred creamer into her coffee like nothing had happened. The same woman who weaponized sentiment with a tea towel over her shoulder and guilt in her voice. Then the real blow arrived. An email from my bank flagged an account security alert. Unusual financial activity. Large transaction tied to a home loan. I logged in immediately. There it was. $120,000 mortgage. Opened under my name, 2 months ago. Cosigner, D. Birch. Address, the house I currently lived in. I called the bank without hesitation. The woman who answered walked me through the paperwork. Yes, ma'am, it was submitted electronically with digital signatures and verified income. Whose name is listed as cosigner? Daryl Birch. I didn't feel anything at first, not anger, not even betrayal, just a strange kind of stillness. I asked her to send me the full file. She confirmed it would be emailed within the hour. I hung up and opened my email client. New message, subject line, RE, mortgage documents, as requested. Attached was the PDF. I opened it slowly, each page confirming what I already knew in my gut. Fake email, forged signature, stolen identity. The kind of crime that doesn't get talked about at brunch. I clicked forward and typed, to Ellis Roth. Subject, urgent, mortgage fraud involving family message. Please review attached. I need to know my options. Fast. Laureen. I hit send. Then I stood, walked to the kitchen, and pulled out the folder I'd labeled Receipts. Inside were the documents I'd printed days earlier. Bank transfers, shared credit history, screenshots, captions, post dates. I snapped a photo of the folder's front cover. Then I went back to Facebook. For a moment, I hovered. Thought about how much noise they'd made. How easily people took sides when fed half a story in cursive captions. I uploaded the photo, just the folder. No frills, no tags. Caption. Let's be honest. If you wanted silence, you should have paid for it. I clicked post. Then I turned off notifications. Let them talk. The next time I spoke, it would be through court records. The photo had been posted, the folder labeled, the notifications silenced. I didn't need to see their responses to know what they'd say. The familiar rhythms of deflection and pity would follow. She's always been dramatic. You know how Laureen gets. But that phase of my life had expired. The next move wouldn't be a message or a conversation. It would be an invitation. 3 days later, I stood at the head of the dining room table, not to serve a meal, but to serve notice. I had arranged everything with care, not a casserole dish in sight. The tablecloth was replaced with a legal pad. Where the centerpiece once sat, I placed my laptop. A speaker rested beside it. The chairs were spaced evenly around the table, one for each of them. I'd even folded cloth napkins to maintain the illusion of civility. Marla arrived first, naturally. She walked in wearing a sweater with glittery threads and a forced smile. "Trying again for peace?" she said, dropping her purse on a chair. I said nothing, just gestured for her to sit. Glendora followed, her pearls catching the hallway light. She glanced at the table and hesitated. "No food? Not today," I said. Daryl showed up last, still smelling faintly of the workshop he escaped to when feelings got too close. Once seated, the room fell into that odd hush reserved for funerals and forced interventions. "Thank you for coming," I said, standing behind my chair. "I called this meeting because I've spent my entire adult life sitting quietly while you all decided who I was without asking. Tonight, you're going to listen." Marla scoffed. "God, here we go." I clicked my mouse and cast my laptop to the flat screen across the room. The first file appeared. A spreadsheet with columns for every bank transaction I'd covered, every Venmo transfer, every Amazon charge sent to Glendora's or Marla's address. "No one asked you to do all this," Marla said. "You're right," I replied. "You just expected it." The second file played. An audio clip, clear and steady. Glendora's voice whispering to Marla, "We'll shift the deed after the remodel's done. It's better if Laureen doesn't know. She'll stay useful longer." Glendora's face drained of color. "You recorded me?" "You plotted against me," I said. Daryl looked up for the first time. "Let's not overreact. You know your mother, she exaggerates." I advanced to the third file. The mortgage application. My name, my social security number, my forged signature, co-signed by Daryl Birch. I turned to him. "You signed it. You co-signed a loan using my name, my credit. You gave away something that doesn't belong to you." He shifted, eyes darting toward Glendora, who shook her head in disbelief. "We just needed leverage," she muttered. "You weren't using it properly. You were hoarding." "Hoarding," I repeated. "You think I was hoarding security, my own security, after all I gave you?" Marla tried to break in, her tone frantic. "It was for all of us, Laureen. I've had a hard time, too. You act like you're the only one who's ever struggled." "You've never struggled," I said calmly. "You've coasted. And you've done it on the backs of people who wouldn't let the house fall apart just because no one said thank you." The room stayed silent. Then a knock came at the door. I opened it to reveal Ellis Roth, my lawyer, wearing a tailored suit and a look that could cut stone. He entered with a manila envelope and a folder under his arm. "Mrs. Glendora Birch and Ms. Marla Birch?" he said clearly. They both nodded, confused. "You are being formally served notice of civil litigation regarding financial fraud, misrepresentation, and identity theft," he said, laying the documents neatly on the table. Daryl stood. "Now wait a minute. This is a family matter." Ellis turned to him. "No, sir. It became a legal matter the moment you signed a document under false pretense." Marla looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under her. "You're really doing this?" "You already did," I said. "I'm just not covering it up anymore." Glendora leaned back in her chair, tears streaming now. "You can't do this to your own mother." I leaned in, meeting her gaze directly. "I didn't do this to my family," I said. "You just never treated me like I was part of it." Ellis nodded once, then excused himself, letting the door close gently behind him. I turned and walked to the wall where a framed print of the family tree hung. Names etched, branches flowing. My name sat near the bottom, in smaller font. I took it down, brought it to the fireplace, folded it once, then again, and dropped it into the flames. It didn't roar, it didn't flare, it just crackled, slow and quiet, just like the truth. The fire burned low into the evening, just enough to erase the paper, but not the history. The crackle faded, and with it, something else inside me settled. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I slept. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't dream about being overlooked. I dreamed about nothing at all. Now, 2 years later, the sun touched the lake behind my home in Lake Havasu with the soft glow of a season turning. The air had warmed into early spring, the kind that lets you leave the windows open but still wear a sweater in the morning. I stood barefoot on the back porch, a mug of cinnamon tea in my hand, watching ripples shift across the water. The house behind me was modest, but it was mine, designed with intention, built with peace in mind. No grand foyer, no walls hung with portraits that meant nothing. Just light, quiet, and space. My partner was away for the weekend with our dog, camping a few hours north. I used the alone time to sort through what little was left from my former life. I opened the cedar trunk in my office, a gift from a client who once told me, "Every woman deserves a box for the things that don't fit in drawers." Inside were handwritten recipes, a pair of gloves from my grandmother, and at the very bottom, a sealed manila envelope. I knew what it held before I touched it. The last page from a chapter I never truly reread, but also never completely closed. I laid the envelope on the desk and opened the drawer beside it. Inside was a letter that had arrived weeks ago. The handwriting on the envelope had been instantly familiar. Uneven, careful cursive that tried too hard to look graceful. Glendora. I read it again, slowly. I'd already read it twice the night it arrived. "Lorene, I was wrong. Not about everything, but about enough that I wish I'd listened. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. Mom." No flowery apologies, no excuses, but also no real ownership. I didn't expect anything else. Along with the letter came a printed voicemail transcript from Ellis. I hadn't asked him to send it. He just knew I should see it. Marla had apparently left it during a brief call to his office, when she thought I might listen through someone else. "Tell her, I didn't know how deep I'd gone until the lights went out. She was the only real one among us." That line stuck with me. Not because it healed anything, but because it proved I hadn't imagined it. I folded both papers and slipped them back into the envelope, then placed it into the trunk, not for safekeeping, but as acknowledgement. I didn't need to reread it again. I'd already memorized the parts that mattered. I turned to my computer and opened the folder labeled "Closed Case, Birch." I hovered over it for a second, then dragged it to the trash. When the pop-up asked if I was sure, I clicked yes. The only thing I kept was one printed page, a simple sheet with the header I'd typed all that time ago. "They keep forgetting me. Below it, in fresh ink, I wrote, "And that's okay, because I remembered me." I slid it into a new envelope, sealed it, and placed it in the trunk with the others. Not to revisit, but to keep the promise I'd made to myself, that I could walk forward without dragging broken pieces behind me. As the sun dipped lower, casting a soft shimmer across the lake, I picked up my phone and typed a short message to Ellis. "Thanks for everything. I'm okay." Really? I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, just before pressing send, I backspaced the message, slowly, word by word. I set the phone down and smiled. Not big, not proud, just sure. Sometimes, walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. For years, I thought love meant staying. That loyalty required silence. That being the dependable one meant accepting crumbs while others feasted on my labor. But here's what I learned. The hard way. When you stop begging to be seen, you start seeing yourself more clearly than ever before. If you're watching this, and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever poured yourself out until there was nothing left, just to be tolerated, not loved, then I want you to know you're not alone, and you're not wrong for finally choosing yourself. We live in a culture that says family above all, but let me ask you, what is family if it costs you your dignity? Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself, and even for them, is to set a boundary they never expected you to draw. Now I'm curious, have you ever had to walk away from the people who were supposed to protect you? Was it your sister, a parent, a spouse, or maybe it was everyone? Tell me in the comments, what part of this story hit you the hardest? If this video moved you, type 1 in the comments, or just let me know where you're watching from. I read every word. And hey, if this story reminded you of someone you love, or someone you finally let go of, don't forget to share it. If you want more stories like this, real, raw, and worth hearing, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because next time, it might be your story we're telling. Thank you for watching. And remember, letting go isn't giving up. It's making space for peace.